And to complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. Malacanang respects the decision of the United States government to impose a one-year ban for Filipino applicants of U.S. work visas. According to presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo, the U.S. government has the right to implement its laws. However, Panelo says they are yet to verify the basis of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for issuing such an order. On its website, federalregister.gov, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security removed the Philippines from its list of countries eligible for the H-2A and H-2B visas along with Ethiopia and Dominican Republic, citing overstaying and human trafficking concerns. The one-year ban takes effect from January 19, 2019 to January 18, 2020. Panelo says they are yet to receive a report from the U.S. Embassy to the exact details of the ban, but he assures that the government will take action on the situation once they get the report. The government also reminds Filipinos overseas, particularly those in the U.S., to follow immigration rules and avoid staying beyond what is allowed in their visas.
President Xi, he says, whatever your laws are, we will never intrude into that in the same way that whatever laws we have, we will enforce it. So if that is the law in the U.S. and if there were violations, then we have to respect. They have basis for that. We will only react if our workers are being mistreated, maltreated, or being discriminated against. But if they violated the laws of the U.S., then they have to face the music.
The Commission on Elections is set to investigate the alleged harassment of teachers who serve as members of the PLEBISCITE committee. This is following reports on teachers withdrawing their services from the referendum due to some concerns and threats.
What is worrisome is that someone would take that information and use it to harass teachers who are simply doing their duty. Yun ang nakakabahala. No? But we are looking into it to identify who the person is or persons are behind that move.
The poll body will also look into the alleged intimidation of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front on some voters during the plebiscite in Cotabato City.
The presence of MILF individuals, of elements of MILF, was known here in Cotabato City, but they were in civilian clothes, they had no arms, and their presence was matched by an augmentation of the forces of the AFP.
Overall, COMELEC says they did not encounter any big problem with the BOL referendum except for some delays in polling centers. Meanwhile, most Filipino Muslims are in favor of the passage of the Bangsamoro organic law, according to a survey released by the social weather stations amid the ongoing plebiscite in Mindanao. The survey, conducted last December 16 to 19, 2018, showed that 79% of 1,440 Muslim respondents nationwide approved the BOL. Around 14% are undecided, while 7% disagreed with the proposed measure. The BOL seeks to replace the existing autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao and grant greater political and fiscal autonomy to the new Bangsamoro entity. On Monday, residents in ARMM, Isabela City, Basilan, and Cotabato City were the first to cast their votes for the ratification of the BOL. The second voting will take place in parts of Lanao del Norte and North Cotabato on February 6. According to Malacanang, the initial unofficial tally of the votes from the first plebiscite is a close validation of the survey results. The palace also hopes that the pursuit of peace and development in the Bangsamoro region will commence with the BOL ratification.
Pag napasa yun, ibig sabihin matutuwa yung mga sakop ng region except those yung mga against. Like Cotabato yata and Sulu. Yes. Pero wala naman silang choice. That's the law. Everyone has to toe the line.
The Philippine National Police believes that the proposal seeking to lower the age of criminal liability in children could help deter adults from exploiting minors in crimes. According to PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde, the bill could help lower the number of minors with criminal records as it will discourage parents and syndicates from using children in illegal activities. Based on the PNP reported children in conflict with the law incident data, more than 11,200 minors were involved in crimes in 2018, which is higher than the number recorded in 2017. Most of them were implicated in theft, physical injury, malicious mischief, illegal drugs, and rape. Albayalde also reiterates the PNP support for the bill and vows to implement the law once passed by Congress.
Natututo din yung mga matatanda na ginagamit yung mga bata dahil alam nila yung mga bata hindi makukulong. So ito ring mga matatanda ang nakikita natin nagtuturo dito sa mga bata na sasabihin din nila na hindi naman kayo makukulong, hindi kayo pwedeng ikulong ng pulis. The most that they can do to you is to turn you over sa DSWD.
The Senate Justice Committee is pushing to set the minimum age of criminal responsibility to 12, contrary to the House version of 9 years old. According to committee chairperson Senator Richard Gordon, 9 years old is too young to be held criminally liable.
9, I think, is too tender. I'm more leaning now to 12, and ang recommend ko siguro 12, pero after about 3 years, we look it up and then we increase it to 15 and eventually to 18.
Earlier, the Senate Committee on Justice has started weighing in the proposed measure, which seeks to lower the age of criminal responsibility. One of the factors that the panel discussed was the age of discernment, or the ability of a person to judge or decide between right and wrong. According to the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Council, an umbrella organization of the Department of Justice mandated to supervise the advocacy and information dissemination on juvenile justice system in the country, scientific studies suggest that a child develops his or her discernment on things at the age of 14 to 16. Between those ages, a child can still be considered immature, therefore they shouldn't be held criminally liable unlike adults. The group also argued that teenagers most of the time impulsive in making decisions because of immaturity.
Based on the study also, it showed that even if these children know that what they're going to do is right or wrong, it's usually their impulse that controls them. When they make decisions, they don't make it because they know that's what being told to them as right or wrong, but because of peer pressure. So it depends on their priority and also because of their immaturity.
In other news, Manila Zoo will be closed temporarily to the public in line with the government's rehabilitation of Manila Bay. In a memorandum issued by Manila City Mayor Joseph Estrada, the zoo's closure was ordered to give way for the construction of sewer lines for wastes and other facilities. This was after Environment Secretary Roy Samato said the zoo had been draining untreated sewage into one of the estuaries leading to Manila Bay. Mayor Estrada also ordered for the decades-old park to undergo proper assessment and study for its eventual rehabilitation. Manila Zoo is a 5-hectare park known formally as the Manila Zoological and Botanical Garden. It was opened in July 1959 and was dubbed as the iconic family site in the city of Manila. And for the news abroad, here's Kath Dumaraos live from Bangkok, Thailand. Kath, good evening.
Good evening, William. More than 100 members of Afghan security forces were killed when Taliban insurgents attacked a military compound in the central Maidan Wardak province on Monday. A provincial official said at least 126 members were killed in the attack that began Monday morning when a suicide bomber detonated his explosive-laden vehicle outside the base in Maidan Shar, the capital of Wardak province. Some of the injured were in provincial hospitals, while the more serious cases were being treated in Kabul. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the coordinated attack, which began with a car bomb that detonated at the gate of the base in Maidan Shar. The global economy will continue to grow at a steady pace amid signs that global growth has peaked. Jovic Burmas will tell us why.
The global economy will grow around 3% annually in 2019 and 2020, but waning support for multilateralism, escalating trade disputes, increasing debt and rising climate risks are clouding prospects. The UN's report, The World Economic Situation and Prospects 2019, said signs suggest that the economic growth spurt has peaked, forecasting that global growth will remain steady at just below the 3.1% expansion of 2018. But the report also stressed that economic growth is uneven and often doesn't reach poorer nations. Per capita income is expected to stagnate or see only marginal growth this year in parts of Africa, Western Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean, it said. While economic indicators remain largely favorable, the report raises concerns over the sustainability of global economic growth in the face of rising financial, social, and environmental challenges.
It's very difficult in that world to make real clear predictions about where individual economies are likely to be heading over the next 12 to 24 months and beyond that, the global economy more generally. All we would say, and the report emphasizes this, is that there are very serious threats to economic growth along several fronts: trade, debt, geopolitical, climatic.
The annual economic forecast said urgent and concrete policy action was needed to put the world on track to meet the UN's goals, including combating poverty and preserving the environment.
Growth is fragile, huge uncertainties remain, risks are looming. In that sense, we would argue, and this is obviously a point we've endlessly made in the Trade and Development Report, we have not broken away from the legacy of the financial crisis of 2008-2009. We are still in a new abnormal. There's nothing particularly normal.
The report was issued on the same day that the International Monetary Fund cut its growth forecast for 2019 to 3.5% from a prediction of 3.7% in October, citing heightened trade tensions and rising interest rates. And China, the world's second largest economy, said its economic growth slowed to 6.6% in 2018, the weakest since 1990. Jovic Burma, UNTV News and Rescue.
The United States called on Russia on Monday to destroy a new cruise missile system, which it said was a direct and continuing violation of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and accused Moscow of destabilizing global security. The U.S. last week rejected a Russian offer to save the landmark INF treaty that keeps nuclear missiles out of Europe because it could not be properly verified, setting the stage for Washington to withdraw from the pact next month. Russia has flight-tested an illegal missile known as the SSC-8/9M729 and taken no concrete steps to return to compliance with the INF Pact. The step represented a potent and direct threat to Europe and Asia, as it had a range of 500 to 1,500 kilometers. Russia's Deputy Permanent Representative for Disarmament Affairs Alexander Deineko said that his country shall not yield to any ultimatums like to liquidate or to eliminate missile that does not fall within the range of a treaty prohibition. A World Health Organization report dispels myths about migrants and refugees posing health risks to population in their host country. Beverly Saison tells us why.
Migrants and refugees arriving in Europe are likely to be healthy but risk falling sick due to poor living conditions in their host countries, the World Health Organization said in a first ever report on migrants' health. The World Health Organization said on Monday that refugees and migrants in Europe do not bring diseases but are in higher risk of getting sick because they lack access to health care.
The refugees and migrants who come to Europe, they do not bring any exotic diseases with them, any exotic communicable diseases.
Poor living conditions also increase their risk of cardiovascular diseases, stroke, and cancer, though they are less affected than their host populations on arrival. The report said that a significant proportion of migrants and refugees who are HIV positive acquire the infection after they arrived in Europe. Despite a widespread assumption to the contrary, there is only a very low risk of refugees and migrants transmitting communicable diseases to their host population.
The diseases that they might have, they are all well-established diseases in Europe. And also we have very good prevention and control programs for these diseases. This applies both for tuberculosis, but also HIV/AIDS.
Just 12 out of the 53 countries in the World Health Organization European region, including the UK, Italy, Greece, and Uzbekistan, have vaccination policies which include migrants and refugees, and the report urges countries to ensure that new entrants receive basic vaccines based on the schedule of the host country. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Kath Dumaraos, live from Bangkok, Thailand. Rising Greek prospect Stefanos Tsitsipas added another thrilling chapter to his Australian Open odyssey on Tuesday. The 20-year-old felling Roberto Bautista about 7-5, 4-6, 6-4, and 7-6-2 to a clay-maiden Grand Slam semifinal for the Mediterranean region. Having already floored Roger Federer to send shockwaves through the tournament, the 14th seed can create further tennis history for Greece when he plays for the spot in the final against either Rafael Nadal or Francis Tiafoe. Under a blazing sun at the Rod Laver Arena, the aggressive baseliner fought back from 4-2 down in the third set and was unflappable in the fourth set. Tiebreak closing out the match with a pair of booming serves. In his victory, Tsitsipas became the youngest semi-finalist at Melbourne Park since American Andy Roddick, also 20 at the 2003 tournament.
I mean, I feel a bit emotional, but not too much, because I know that, again, I really worked hard to get here, play in the semis of the Grand Slam. I started the year and they asked me what's one of my goals this year. I said semis, Grand Slam. And I thought, when I was answering this question, I thought I was crazy. But no, it is real, and it just happened.
A pre-cycled grocery market in Brooklyn, USA bans all forms of packaging and only dispenses items to customers who carry their own containers. Eileen Cerudo tells us why.
It was roughly 5 years ago that New York entrepreneur Katerina Bogatireva looked down at her garbage bin and realized she was fed up with all the excess plastic and other packaging before her eyes. And so, the Latvian-born 40-year-old immigrant had an idea: open a grocery market that operates without any form of packaging. On December 6, Bogatireva opened the pre-cycled grocery market in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn. It is currently dispensing a range of fruits, legumes, and vegetables via bulk, which means customers choose the amount of items they want to purchase. They carry items with their own packaging via any parcel they brought in, or a bag or a glass jar, jug, or bottle they buy at the store. Bogatireva readily admits the idea of a packaging-free market is already embraced throughout much of Europe, including in her native Riga. But such a store is novel to New York City and much of the United States.
Single-use plastic, we have to just tame it, because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble. As we all know, environment is heavily polluted. So I think if there's more businesses like this and people have these options, inevitably they'll do that.
Indeed, customers could be seen on her market floor bringing in outside plastic bottles to use for buying olive oil during a recent visit.
Sometimes they pay more for a jar if they didn't bring their own. Then it's always cheaper to buy in bulk, no matter what, because you also customers in charge of how much they buy. For example, spices people are shocked how much cheaper it is.
Bogatireva says it is too early to see how her business is faring, but it turns out she is already filling a niche many were hungering for.
I would love for it to be more the norm. I think you can generally find bulk like the seeds and things like that pretty easily, but other things like the oil, I just saw just last time I was here didn't have this produce section open, so the tofu and stuff like that's really hard to get also without plastic packaging. So yeah, I think it would be great to see.
Plans are underway to offer dairy, meat, and seafood once proper certification is secured. Another pre-cycled branch in Manhattan is also slated to open in the next 6 months. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV, News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news, January 22nd, 2019. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, and Angelo, Castro III. I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.